Hello, everybody. Today is going to be a Sandicides audio recording of me reading out my Sandicides story I've been working on. This is my original idea. Uh, Please do not copy or claim as your own. This belongs to the rightful owner, aka me. But enough talking. Let's get to it. The start of the story is called Taking Flight. Chapter 1. The Beginning. The door was slammed open with such force the whole castle shook, dust exploding everywhere. Hurry up, Jadal, we're not going to get there in time. Remus bellowed down the hall as he was pacing the room excitedly, waiting for his closest and dearest friend to get ready so they could finally start their most waited and planned adventure yet. Down the long Down the long, pitch dark corridor, if you turn to left after you walk past a ginormous painting at the first room on the left, it is a bright black yellow glow in the dark snake painted onto it. Inside that room was a young man wearing black and grey striped, no, black with a yellow striped top hat, with a dark grey and yellow jacket with a small gold chain connecting the two top pieces together. His hair was chocolate brown with a bright light yellow at the ends. His eyes were also chocolate brown, but on the right eye was yellow, identical to the real eye of a snake. He had green grass-colored snake scales down the whole side of his right side of his face, which he usually covered up not to help not draw any attention. Janice finished packing his bag and took one last look around his room before bolting out of his bedroom to meet up with Remus, who had been waiting for him at the entry of the Darkside Castle. Sorry it's taking a while. I was rechecking we had everything because we'll be gone for quite some time, Janice justified to Remus, who was being very impatient. Remus was also a young man. He wears a black jumper with a dark green octopus on the front. He had dark ripped jeans and green and yellow tie-dyed runners. His hair was the darkest brown you can think of, dark green at the ends with a grey stripe. His eyes were green, but one was red. He had a dark brown mustache. He also had a dark brown mustache. It's fine, Dee. Now that you're here, let's go, Remus replied with a large grin on his face as he raced towards the door. Janice let out a little laugh before following Remus closely behind, closing and locking the door behind him. Page 2. Alright, Remus, don't get ahead of yourself. We have to stick together, remember? I don't want to lose you again like I did in the shopping centre, Janice called out to him as he slowly started to catch up to him. I won't. Plus, it was fun when you were trying to find me and trying to catch me. Remus replied back as he started to speed walk backwards in front of Janice. Janice playfully rolled his eyes. He loved Remus. He'd raised Remus since Remus was an 11-month-old baby. Ever since Janice laid eyes on him, he's been very protective of him. He used to be protective of two, but he lost one. Ever since then, Janice did everything in his power to protect Remus at all cost. Even though Remus was immune and he was a bit nutty, he loved him nonetheless. Page 3. Janice and Remus weaved their way through the trees as they began their very long journey to find the jungle/forest temple that had been lost over time. And when I say lost over time, I mean this temple goes back a long way. Remus jumped onto Janice's back and wrapped his arms and legs around him. I can't be bothered to walk, Remus pronounced to Janice with a cheeky tone in his voice. All right then, Janice replied as he stopped to adjust Remus's legs so he wouldn't lose grip on him, and then he began walking again. As Janice was carrying Remus, a gateway opened in front of them, and Janice jolted to a stop as it sounded like voices could be heard. Remus peered over Janice's shoulder to see why he came to a stop. Just go around, Jen, Remus suggested as he stroked Janice's scales. Janice melted into Remus's touch before he responded. I will, but I have a feeling that someone or something will come through, and Janice paused as he melted into Remus's touch again. The voices got louder and louder until four other people came through the gateway, landing on top of each other with a loud thud. Get off, said one of the people said with a grumpy/tired voice. The other three got off him and looked around. Where are we? I'm not sure, kiddo. Remus looked at Janice. Janice looked at Remus with the same face expression. You! One of them pulled out a sword. What are you doing here? One of them got scared. Kiddo, please, don't jump to conclusions. None of us know what we're all doing here. The male didn't put his sword down. We should be asking you the same thing, Janice replied to the male. Remus got off Janice's back and took his mace out. Kiddos, please don't fight. We can work this out, one male replied to the others. Janice sighed. Bree, enough. Drop it. Remus looked at him. Why? Janice gave a stern look. Drop it. Remus rolled his eyes. Ugh. Fine. Remus dropped his mace. You too, Roman, one of the males replied, holding a sword. Fine. The male drops his sword. What are you doing here? One of the males shouted. Janice glared at the male. The better question would be, what are you doing here? He shot back. You know what? I don't care. Just shut up, Snake, the male hissed back. Janice fell silent, his eyes looking away. Remus saw the look on Janice's face and pulled him into a hug, pulling him away from the others. He whispered something into Janice's ear. Janice nodded and hugged back. The male rolled his eyes and pulled his hood up over his head. Janice hoisted Remus onto his back once more and began walking. You guys can either come with us or stay here. That was all Janice had said before as he continued to walk as Remus wrapped his legs around Janice. All four males quickly looked at each other, then quickly followed not too far behind. Later, page 4. Dawn had set upon the forest, and Janice and the others had set up camp in a small fire. The Roman, Virgil, Patton, and Logan all sat around the fire. Janice and Remus were both in the trees, staring off into the darkness of the forest, as well as keeping an eye on the rest of them. Janice became tired when it hit around 11:36 p.m. He yawned a little and rested his head on Remus's shoulder and gently closed his eyes. Remus looked at him and smiled softly as he took his hoodie off and put it on Janice to keep him warm. He then rested his head on Janice's and fell asleep not long after. The next morning, Janice was the only one awake. He was quietly sitting by a small lake in the early dawn. Janice sighed a little, then looked down into his reflection in the water looked down into the water to see his reflection. Then something happened. His reflection began to change. His scales turned black, and his eyes turned orange, with a swirled black. His hair also went black, with the ends of his hair going orange. Janice watched and became startled. He backed up from the water as quickly as a flash for a minute before going back and looking back down at the water. He looked normal. Janice let out a sigh of relief and looked at himself again in the water before getting up and walking back to Remus and the others. Remus and the others had already gotten up and were packing away everything. Morning, kiddo, Patton said as Janice came into view. Good morning, Patton, Janice replied quietly. Patton smiled and finished packing everything away into the 3 bags. Well, that's the end of that. Hope you enjoyed. There will be another part coming out very soon. Bye.